Hello, my name is Roxanne Casillas and I'm here to talk about Chinese workers and the Transcontinental Railroad. By the time the Civil War began, the westward expansion movement was in full swing. But traveling from the east to the west was still very difficult. Before the creation of the Transcontinental Railroad, a journey across the continent to the western states meant an over 6-month trip through many natural barriers such as rivers, deserts, and mountains. Because of this, many people chose to travel by sea, taking a 6-month route around Cape Horn, all the way to South America. The first trains began to run in the United States in the 1830s, along the East Coast, and by 1840s, the nation's railway networks extended throughout the East, South, and Midwest. After the Mexican-American War, the United States gained access to the California territory, and the discovery of gold in the area brought much interest to miners and immigrants. This project involved 2 companies, Union Pacific and Central Pacific, and would take 6 years to complete. Although most of the company's railroad workers were initially from Ireland, and Union Pacific employed some native-born American soldiers, most workers for Central Pacific were Chinese immigrants by the time the railroad was finished. These immigrants faced particularly poor working conditions and fierce discrimination, but their efforts were crucial to the construction of the railroad and to the full development of the West. During the construction of the railroad, thousands of Chinese immigrants came to the United States to find a better life. Instead, they found severe racial discrimination and dangerous working conditions, which is not something they were hoping for when immigrating to the United States. Most came from southern China and hoped to escape the poverty and social unrest that characterized their homeland. Like thousands of native-born Americans and immigrants from the other parts of the world, they hoped to strike it rich during the gold rush. When they failed to achieve this dream for the search of gold, many of these Chinese immigrants remained in California to perform other jobs. Since the construction began in Sacramento, and there was already many Chinese immigrants there, the company decided to recruit them as workers. The thing that pushed the company to hire Chinese workers even more was the fact that they were willing to lay tracks in very dangerous areas for a very cheap price, something that American workers were not willing to do. The company saw Chinese laborers as calm and submissive. They did any task without any questions or complaints. Even though Chinese workers were proved to be more efficient in the job, they were forced to be disrespected and to deal with racial slurs and discrimination from their non-Chinese workers. Even the Irish were joining in on the teasing, even though they themselves were seen as the dirty lower class of Great Britain. Chinese workers were also not paid the same as their white co-workers. They were forced to find their own shelter and food when white workers were offered shelter and meals once they were hired. The Chinese were forced to sleep wherever they could, including tunnels they were currently in construction, which caused many accidents and more than 1,000 deaths. It is important to remember and acknowledge that the United States might have never completed the Transcontinental Railroad without the Chinese. I have an interesting picture here that shows the Golden Spike moment in 1869. As you can see, the Chinese laborers were not included in the picture. Back then, if someone from the other side of the country saw this picture back in the 1800s, they would have never known that Chinese immigrants played a vital part of this moment. And to me, it's unfair to the immigrants and their legacies. Now I found this other picture taken in 2014 of the descendants of the Chinese railroad workers recreating the famous Golden Spike moment, which it was really cool to see. And this concludes my presentation, and I hope you guys like it. Here are my sources. Thank you.